saw my face in the drawing before I saw the knife. And by then, he was already standing behind me. I used to babysit for this family a few houses down from my parents' place. Super quiet neighborhood. Nothing weird ever happened until I met Elijah. He was 6. Pale, too pale. Barely spoke, just stared. His parents always seemed tired, like whatever was happening in their home had been happening for a long time. The first night I sat for them, they were overly grateful, almost desperate. Just don't. Go into the basement, the dad told me before leaving. He's not allowed down there. He didn't explain why Elijah was already seated on the couch when they left. No cartoons, no tablet. Just staring at the blank screen, like he was waiting for something to turn on by itself. I tried to talk to him. Want a snack? Legos? Color something? He didn't answer. But after a while, he disappeared upstairs with a red crayon clutched. In his hand, I heard no footsteps, just the creak of his door closing. I let him be. Some kids are just shy. But when I went to check on him later, just to make sure he wasn't asleep on the floor or drawing on the walls, I found him lying perfectly still on the bed, staring straight at the ceiling. There was a single piece of paper sticking out from beneath the bed. I reached down to grab it. It was a drawing. Stick figures, kind of shaky, but the detail was disturbing. A figure of a girl with brown hair, eyes X'd out, laying in a pool of red scribbles. Behind her, a smaller figure stood smiling, holding something long and sharp. I felt my throat tighten. The worst part, the girl was wearing exactly what I had on. Right down to the hoodie with the tear in the sleeve in the bottom corner, in tiny red numbers, was the date. Tonight's date. I froze. Elijah? I said, my voice cracked. He didn't move. Not even a blink. I backed out of the room slowly, heart thumping so loud it echoed in my ears. Back downstairs, I double-checked every door. All locked. I texted his mom to ask if he had nightmares or behavioral issues. She didn't answer. I kept the lights on after that. Around 10 p.m. I heard the sound of papers fluttering. It was coming from the hallway. I peeked out. There, lined up like breadcrumbs from the stairwell to the front door, were more drawings. Each one showed a slightly different scene. Me, lying on the floor. Me, bleeding from the eyes. Me, screaming. The last one, the newest, showed me opening the front door. And behind me, again, that small grinning figure. That's when I noticed the knob on the door was turning. Screamed, loud, fumbling backward toward the kitchen. Grabbed the landline. Dialed 911. The line crackled, then went dead. Elijah, I yelled. Where are you? No answer. Suddenly the lights flickered. Once, twice, and went out. I reached for my phone flashlight, but it slipped from my hand and clattered across the floor. Then I heard breathing. Not mine, not a child's either. Slow, deep, like something trying to sound human. I crawled to the pantry and locked myself in. I could hear footsteps now. Slow, deliberate, closer. I reached up and grabbed the first thing I could, some kind of tool or handle, and held it in front of me. Something scraped across the pantry door. Then silence. I don't know how long I stayed in there. At some point, I must have passed out. The next thing I remember is waking to bright morning sunlight leaking through the cracks in the door. The house was dead quiet. I crept out. No drawings, no blood, no open door. Everything looked normal. Elijah was sitting at the kitchen table. Coloring. He looked up and said, in the calmest voice I've ever heard from a child, "It won't be today anymore." That was the last time I babysat. A week later, his family moved out without warning. Left the house fully furnished. Plates still in the sink. Drawings on the fridge. One of them was new. It was a picture of me. Smiling, Got standing behind a different girl, holding a red crayon. I watched the boy step out of a burning church, untouched, and he was smiling like he'd just been born inside it. I've been a volunteer firefighter in my small town for over a decade, seen barn fires, car wrecks, kitchen disasters. But what happened at St. Elora's Church 2 summers ago, I still can't explain it. That morning was hot, unnaturally so for May. The air felt tight, like it was pressing down on your lungs before you even did anything. We got the call at 10:47 a.m. The dispatcher said the church was on fire. During a service, that was the first red flag. St. Elora's barely filled half its pews on Sundays. Tuesday morning, no one should have been there. When we arrived, flames were already tearing through the steeple, black smoke billowing into a sky that had turned this sickly yellow-gray. It looked like a storm was trapped above the building, circling it. A crowd had gathered outside, maybe 30 people, most of them coughing, crying. Some collapsed on the lawn. One woman clutched her baby, whispering, "He told me not to come." And then I saw Father Graham, our town priest for almost 40 years, standing near the front steps, his robes half-charred, eyes wide and wild. He was screaming over and over, "He's here! He's here!" We tried to get him to safety, but he shoved one of the paramedics away and ran back inside. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. Just as we were preparing to follow protocol and enter, someone else walked out. A boy, no more than 10. No burns, no soot, no fear. Just walking calmly through the smoke like it parted for him. He stopped at the edge of the fire trucks, barefoot on the hot pavement, and smiled at me, not like a normal kid smile, no. This one was knowing. I'll never forget his eyes. Pale gray, almost colorless, like something ancient had been poured into a child's body. He didn't blink once. I asked if he was okay, where his parents were. He just looked up at me and said, "I'm not done here yet," then walked straight past me, into the crowd, and vanished. We never found any record of him. None of the churchgoers claimed to know who he was or how he got in. No missing person. Report matched his description. The fire itself? Investigators couldn't find a source. No gas leak, no faulty wiring. The building had passed inspection 2 weeks prior. But here's the part keeps me up when they combed through the wreckage. Of the church, they found Father Graham's body, charred beyond recognition. Except for one thing, his face was twisted in a smile. Not pain, not fear. Ecstasy. Clutched in his burned hand was a torn page from one of the hymnals. Most of it was unreadable, but one line was still clear. It said, "And the boy shall walk unburned among the flames." That church was rebuilt a year later. I don't go near it, but sometimes, when I drive past on a late shift, I see a small figure sitting alone in the front pew. Just a silhouette. Still. Waiting. The baby didn't show up in the mirror, but I swear I saw something else move behind me when I held him. I've worked as a maternity nurse for 13 years. I've seen traumatic births, joyful ones, tragedies, miracles, but nothing prepared me for what happened in room 3C. It was a night shift, quiet for once. Around 2 a.m., we got word that an emergency C-section was coming in. The mother had gone into labor far too early, and something about the fetal vitals wasn't normal. Her name was Carla Mendez. No partner listed. No visitors. Everything about. The file felt sterile, empty. I was assigned to post-op monitoring, meaning I'd be with the newborn once he arrived. The delivery went smoother than expected. No screaming, no complications. Just a still, heavy silence before the baby let out a weak cry. And that's when it started. When I first held him, I noticed something immediately. His skin was wrong. Not cold, not clammy, just off. Too smooth, too still. His eyes were open, unblinking. Pupils a shade too dark. I remember thinking he looked like he'd been waiting to be born, not forced. I brought him over to the sink for the usual vitals and cleaning, but when I leaned near the mirror, he wasn't in it, not just a foggy blur or a bad angle. He wasn't. There, I froze. I tilted him. I moved. I stepped to the side. Nothing. The reflection showed me alone, staring blankly, holding empty space. I told myself I was tired. Maybe the glass was flawed. I reached out with my free hand and tapped the mirror, and the baby started to cry. Not a normal wail, not that sharp newborn screech. This was low, droning, like a hum vibrating behind my teeth. Then glass shattered. Mirror exploded in a spiderweb of cracks from the center out, like something had punched it from inside. I dropped to the floor, shielding the baby instinctively. Shards hit the counter and bounced across the tile like tiny knives. A second later, I heard another crash. The glass monitor panel shattered. Then a popped hallway window. Shattered. Then the lights flickered, dimmed, one by one out. The baby had stopped crying. The silence afterward was worse than the sound. It felt like everything in the room had exhaled, except me. I looked down at him. Still awake, still unblinking, still not reflected in the jagged pieces of mirror all around us. I pressed the emergency call button with a shaking hand. No response. When I stood, I noticed something else. Tiny, perfect cracks on my own face and the mirror shards at my feet. Not the glass. My reflection, a line across my cheek, another under my eye. Like something was peeling me apart in the reflection only. I backed away, and that's when I saw a dot in the far corner of the room, where the fluorescent light still buzzed faintly. My reflection just mined dash, moved. It took a step closer to. But I hadn't moved. I ran. I didn't even remember putting the baby down. I just remember bursting into the hallway, heart hammering, calling for the on-call doctor, for security anyone. By the time we returned to 3C, the baby was in. His bassinet, quiet, sleeping. The glass was intact. No broken mirror, no dark room, no cracks. The night staff looked at me like I'd had some kind of breakdown, but I know when I saw what I felt. The vitals on his chart read normal. He passed every test, but the next night, the nurse on duty said the thermostat in 3C kept dropping below, freezing no matter how high she turned it. She said the baby never blinked, and her shift partner refused to even go in the room set. She felt like she was being watched from inside herself. By the third night, the baby was gone, transferred, no forwarding info, no record. Carla Mendez's bed, empty, discharged. No one remembered releasing her. I resigned a week later, not because I was scared of another incident, but because I started catching glimpses of something in reflective surfaces, bathroom mirrors, my phone screen, the microwave door. Not my face. His. Still. A baby, still unblinking, still waiting.